say the words. So
believe is equal so you can get up and get ready to basically go down the steps first, then you follow the base. This way. Yeah. The tenor, yeah, sure.
Everybody else goes the same.
Christina, where's the Christina, you're going to read out and you see how it is.
Yeah, we have to see.
You're going to go right down that line. Okay, got it. And the first row will be, okay?
Can I just go right down there?
I think so. And so second row, and the two rows go together, whatever's faster. I mean, great job. Let's do it again.
Yeah, we're leaving after I'm going to.
Yeah. And we're going to just start that accomplishment. And I just sent you an email either today or tomorrow. So be sure to look at it. Okay? It's going to be an important meeting. Pardon? I need to talk about, I need to talk to some other people first. I think we're okay to go. I'll let it go just a little bit longer. Okay, so choir, let's do that for me.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to one and all. As always, I want to start by welcoming you to this space, welcoming all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, all that help make you who you are is welcome here this morning. This includes those of you who hear me say this every Sunday, never by rote. I always mean it. It's great to have you, as well as those who might be hearing it for the first time today. You're also very welcome and appreciated. And it includes those of you who are streaming with us this morning, too. So thank all of you for being with us today. It's great to have you. Before we break into just a few moments of greeting one another, I'm going to ask one of our board members to come forward for a couple of quick announcements. Catherine, is it you again? Oh, sorry. I should have said Catherine Alexander. You're just like, well, you said one of us. It could be any one of us in the room, right? So.
Okay, so today is an exciting day. We're doing a listening session this afternoon, so I'm really encouraging you to stay. We're talking about education. Education as a lifelong thing. It's something that's a big value for Unitarians, and yet, how do you think we're doing as a church? So this is your chance to have some input into that. So we're looking at RE, and we're looking at adult education too. What do we really need to do to make that vibrant and to serve our needs? So that's one announcement. The second one, and we'll have a small lunch and child care afterwards if you need it. But how many do not get the Thursday update? Do not. Thursday update.
Email.
It's an email that's sent out on Thursday. Okay, it's one of our, if you do not get it, would you talk to me? Because we're having problems with that being sent out. And the reason why that's important is because in the last Thursday update was a link to the survey. Now, a lot of you attended focus groups. Fabulous, they were really great. We got some really good input, and I think it was a wonderful experience for most people. But the survey is different. So we really want people to take the survey, even if you did a focus group, but the link is the only way you'll get there. So you need the Thursday update in order to do that. It closes tonight at midnight. So it's important that you do that today. So if you don't have that link, please let me know, and we'll see what we can do about getting that for you. Okay, so see me afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a few moments to greet one another now. As always, I hope you'll make some new friends today, and if you are joining us more recently, we're glad you're here, so extend a hand and somebody will be happy to greet you. Okay, sorry to cut that short, but we got lots to do this morning, so do stay around as usual for our social hour after the service, and you can visit more with one another. But let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world, and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Our opening words this morning are from, Marianne Huckton Carter. Welcome to this place of possibility. This is love's hearth, the home of hope, a refuge for minds in search of truth unfolding, ever beautiful, ever strange. Here, compassion is our shelter, freedom our protection from the storms of bigotry and hate. In this abode, may we find comfort and courage. Here, may our sight become vision to see the unseen, to glimpse the good that is yet to be.
We start off this morning with a familiar hymn, Come Sing a Song With Me. It's actually somewhat traditional to sing this hymn on a new member Sunday, which is we have today. You will notice the roses over there and the roses in the song. So please rise as you're willing and able to sing Come Sing a Song With Me.
We now have a very special part of our church life together, a welcoming ceremony for our newest members. So I'm going to invite those of you who will be participating in our ceremony to please come to the front of our sanctuary here this morning. And some of our What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is going to be in lieu of the children's story today. This is a ceremony for all ages. But I should have said that. They're looking at me like you're really totally confused. I'm sorry. I told you I'd mess this up. I just told you I would. So we're going to actually ask the children that are here, you can just stay where you're at. We are going to sing you out after this ceremony. If you just really want to come and sit on the floor and risk getting stepped on, you can. Okay, but otherwise, great. So I'm going to turn it over now to our membership team.
So my name is Rochelle, and I'm part of the membership team along with Jonna Woodruff, Pat Warpenborg, Mary Ann Winniford, and Jim Lee. And it's really our pleasure to welcome the new members for fall 2019. And at this time, we're going to turn the microphone over to each of them so that they can say their name and just say also where you're from, so people know from where you hail.
Marion Hennings, and I'm originally from the Tri-Cities. That's where I first became a Unitarian.
I'm Angela Pennyleen, and I'm originally from Virginia.
Marie Tuchont Meredith, and I'm originally from Spokane. I live in Loon Lake right now.
Liz Melville, and I guess I'm originally from Kent, Washington, and lived on the Wheat Hills for many years as well, in Lamont, Washington.
I'm Aaron Mann from Spokane.
I'm Danica Yank. I'm originally from Yakima, going to school here at Cheney.
Morning, I'm Bob Bernstein from New York.
I'm Robin Roos, originally from Spokane.
Tanya Workmaster from Atlanta, Georgia.
And I'm Kurt Workmaster from Atlanta, Georgia.
As many of you know, each of our new members goes through 2 classes called Path to Membership. And at that time, they learn about the UU principles, they learn about the history of our church, which is really interesting, by the way, if any of you ever get a chance and you want to sit in and hear Todd give a history of Unitarian Universalism, you'd be welcome. It is fascinating. And even though some of us had gone through it several times, I'm always reminded of the things I forgot. So at this time, we will turn it over to Todd.
I'm just going to stay. Why don't you stay near me, because you've got a part of this script too. In fact, if I didn't segue, I would just hand the mic right back to you. But since you gave it to me, I will say that those history lessons are pretty fascinating, and I never give them the same way twice, and I'm always reminded how long-winded I am. So, but we're gonna read our formal ceremony here first. But one of the things I like to remind any new class of members, I think that's the right term to use. Which I do when we meet together in the classes, but I think it's important for the congregation to hear too. In our congregation, membership is really based upon 3 things. The big one is being involved. You know, being here, being part of the church. We see you on Sundays. We get involved in teams and activities so that we know each other and love each other and create community together. Another one is to support the church in some way, is in a way that's meaningful for those who are here. And then finally to sign our membership book. And that sort of like seems like I fizzled out there, didn't I? Oh, sign a book, okay. But if you think about the root of the word significant, signature, signing something, is the most significant thing we can do. And it is really a way of us lending our authority to anything we put our name to, right? If we sign a check, if we sign a petition, if we sign a ballot card, if we sign a piece of work we have authored, we have lent our authority to it. And it always is such an honor to me when people sign our membership book, because they're not doing something for themselves, they're saying something about us. They're honoring us by saying, I believe enough in you and your community that I'm going to lend my authority to it. I'm going to become a co-author of this community. And it is just such a great privilege to see a group of people here who think enough about us to where you're willing to take that last very significant act. So thank you so much.
So at this time, we'd like to welcome our members. We are honored that you have chosen to become members of our church, having found a connection with Unitarian Universalism and expressed your commitment to this community. Membership at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane is both a privilege and a responsibility. It's a place we hope you will feel safe to explore your own path, yet feel a sense of belonging and support. We look forward to our work together in fulfilling the mission of our church and to the many gifts and support that you bring to us.
And now we welcome you individually. We seal this covenant with the rose you've been given, symbolizing our hope that you will fully bloom here in your new church home. And I invite you to read the words in your ceremony now. The low vision version. Okay, we'll work on that next time. But you sounded great. We understood every word of it. And if you've been reading ahead, maybe you're already turned to number 442 in the back of your hymnal. This is a beautiful recitation that we like to share with our new members. Number 442. And you get to just sit and listen to this. This is our congregation's welcome to you. Number 442. We bid you welcome who come with weary spirit seeking rest.
Who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come hurt and afraid.
We bid you welcome who come with hope in your heart.
Who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyous.
We bid you welcome who are seekers of a new faith.
Who come to probe and explore, who come to learn.
We bid you welcome who enter this hall as a homecoming.
Who have found here room for your spirit, who find in this people a family.
Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey, we bid you welcome. Thank you all, and we now invite you to sign our membership book as a symbol of your place among us, and then you may take your seats, and we are, as a congregation, going to sing a song for you while you're doing that. Thank you all so much. We're so honored to have you. Please.
Sing with us.
To
Been asked to remind people that there is cake to celebrate our new members after the service, so do stick around for that. Now we will send our children off to their children's chapel, so if you'd like to come and join Barb here with the chalice. We light this second chalice so that as you go to your children's chapel, you can take its light with you. May it warm, encourage, and inspire you as it does us. And now help us sing the children out. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this church and its mission to the wider world.
We'll now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. And I have a candle request for church member Pamela Comstock, who had a fainting spell and fell and was hospitalized over the weekend. She's hoping to go home tomorrow, but please keep her in your thoughts at this time. Let's do take a moment of silence on behalf of others you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion.
This is the time in our service where we take a few moments for silent meditation, so I invite you to make yourself comfortable as you wish. Close your eyes if you'd like. Take a breath. Some words to take us into meditation. In the darkest night, the smallest flame can be a beacon. For the next few minutes, let each breath in fan the embers of love. Let each breath out spread the warmth of compassion and the light of peace. Let us enter the silence.
For my reading today, I'm going to share a paragraph from Erich Fromm's book, The Revolution of Hope. Hope is paradoxical. It is neither passive waiting, nor is it unrealistic forcing of circumstances that cannot occur. It is like the crouched tiger, which will jump only when the moment for jumping has come. Neither tired reformism nor pseudo-radical adventurism is an expression of hope. To hope means to be ready at every moment for that which is not yet born, and yet not become desperate if there is no birth in our lifetime. There is no sense in hoping for that which already exists or for that which cannot be. Those whose hope is weak settle down for comfort or for violence. Those whose hope is strong see and cherish all signs of new life and are ready every moment to help the birth of that which is ready to be born.
The choir is singing today about an African word called Ubuntu. I think the best person to describe this that I've read is Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and I want to read a quote from him. One of the sayings in our country is Ubuntu, the essence of being human. Ubuntu speaks particularly about the fact that you can't exist as a human being in isolation. It speaks about our interconnectedness. You can't be human all by yourself. And when you have this quality, Ubuntu, you are known for your generosity. We think of ourselves far too frequently as just individuals, separated from one another, whereas we are all connected, and what we all do affects the whole world. When we do something well, it spreads out, and it is for the whole of humanity. Ubuntu.
Thank you. I just can't imagine there being a finer sounding choir being sung anywhere in Spokane on Sunday mornings. And pianist. And choir director. And listeners to the choir. Have we left anybody out? Because I don't know.
No, we're doing Ubuntu.
Ubuntu. We don't want to leave anybody out when we sing Ubuntu. That's right. Absolutely. So some of you may recall hearing a story in the local news a few months ago about a white Gonzaga student who wore a red MAGA cap to class, right? Some of you remember this? Yeah. So his professor, an African-American man, was understandably disturbed by the display, calling it an undeniable symbol of white supremacy. MAGA, as you know, is the acronym for Donald Trump's campaign slogan, Make America Great Again, which many have translated to mean Make America White Again, given the number of white nationalists and white supremacists and even neo-Nazis that have emerged from the shadows and taken to our streets since his election. I'd say there's good reason for the professor's assertion. Still, I don't believe, having encountered many of them now, that everyone who voted for and continues to support Trump did so and do so because they are white supremacists. Just a few weeks ago, for example, I was talking with an employee at a hardware store whom I've known practically for the past 9 years and have always enjoyed speaking with. And we've never talked about politics before, but on this occasion the topic came up, and he told me that he voted for Trump and likes the job he's doing. I must admit that my many prejudices I have toward Trump voters erupted within me, and my impression of this person whom I'd always found likable immediately began to shift. So I pushed back those prejudices and queried him a bit about his decision and what exactly it is that pleases him. And his explanation of what he thinks Trump has accomplished didn't make much sense to me. But his reason for voting for him did. He said it was because he believed things are going so bad in our country that he wanted somebody who could go in and shake things up. I suppose if your goal is shaking things up and you feel that your only option is a wrecking ball, you vote for the wrecking ball. Despite what I consider his poor choice, I believe that this white male was sincere in his desire for change. I believe, like a lot of us, he resisted the cognitive dissonance apparent within his decision. Ignoring all the dehumanizing, misogynistic, racist things Trump has said because of his more dominant, misguided, and almost desperate hope for meaningful change. I say this because, to my shock, he also told me that in the past he had twice voted for another promising change agent, Barack Obama. Yet I don't believe it's really change, at least not just any change that most people want, whichever side of the political line they're on. Like all creatures, humans are creatures of habit and have biologically evolved to fear and resist change. Habitual behaviors are what define and shape any species. Changing them requires us to fundamentally change what we are at the risk of our very lives with untried behaviors that have not been tested by time. Change isn't something we want, it's usually something we fear. So I don't think Trump's generic slogan, promising to make America great again, was really about the desire for change, but about the wish to return to usual, whatever that means. It was part of the genius of it, right? Without defining what it means, you can hear whatever you want. Anxiety is the fastest growing mental health disorder in our country these days, which is coinciding with an era of almost constant and unpredictable economic, cultural, technological, and global change. In their book, The Power of Pull, John Hagel and his co-authors refer to this period as the Big Shift. The Big Shift, which they describe as a fundamental reordering of the way we live, learn, socialize, and work that is now taking place. In other words, everything is changing. Our governments are racing to adapt to a world where social and economic changes far outstrip the ability of legislatures and even dictators to maintain control. The Power of Pull says it's a different game now, and many of us have yet to learn to play it. Those who fail to do so will, as individuals, feel increasing stress. When this happens, I believe many tend to recoil, as is the usual response to threatening situations, by attempting to revert to old ways of thinking and behaving. This explains why voters around the world are electing a rising number of authoritarian leaders these days, or are attempting to isolate themselves from the global community, as with Brexit, or through the heartbreaking reemergence of white nationalism here in the U.S. Not to mention the move towards segregationist identity ethics in American academia and other liberal institutions. The widespread inability to cope with change, with the big shift that's happening right now, and the chronic uncertainty about the future all of us must cope with, causes many to revert to our most recent and familiar nostalgic and isolationist paradigms. But if attempting to do so has proven anything at all, it's that this desperate and fearful responses are powerless to turn the tide. Brexit hasn't happened. And I don't believe it ever will, lest it be in name only. For it is no longer possible for any nation to isolate itself from the global community. It just can't happen. Likewise, Donald Trump's demagoguery has only made the U.S. less powerful on the world stage. Reverting to a government that tries to push others around, push being the opposite of pull, is destined to fail in our age of constant shift. Many people have an understandable nostalgia for a time when economic and social events were more stable and predictable, Hegel says. So they hold on to the push mechanisms that try to maintain that stability. But longing doesn't make it so. The world is changing around us. In the past, when major cultural, social, economic, and global periods of disruption occurred, they were followed by long periods of relative calm and predictability. Right? We settled in and started our new way of living and being. Not so now. Progress happens exponentially, and guess where we are on the curve? Change is going to keep happening faster than ever before. Today we have reached a point of chronic change, and it's only going to increase. Rather than fruitlessly reverting to past behaviors, those who are going to survive must learn to adapt to living in a world of rapid change and unpredictability. That's where we're at. We can no longer swim in calm and familiar waters. We are surfing massive waves that are constantly changing and churning and carrying us in new directions. To live in such a world means we have to be willing to adapt quickly, to overcome our innate fear of change, to ride the wave, and most of all, to learn to love the thrill and the challenge of it. Instead of considering ourselves fragile, we have to become agile. I think that's how surfers do it. I don't know. I've never surfed. In their book, Agility, Leo Tillman and Charles Jacoby say, agile organizations treat disruption and adversity as opportunities. I think the same is true for us as individuals. The first thing we have to admit to ourselves is things aren't going to calm down. And we're never going back to simpler times. And that scares us. Once we face these truths, we can stop miring in wishful and nostalgic thinking and deal with what it means to live in an environment that is constantly changing. Whether we resist it or embrace it makes no difference. The wave is already upon us. We can either be overcome by it or try riding it, but we can't stop it. It's not about voting for populist authoritarians like Trump. It's not about voting to withdraw from the rest of the world. Can't be done. It's not about cloistering together in segregated tribal identities. It's about overcoming our fear and adapting to the changes, even learning to feel excited about the changes. As Susan David says in her book, Emotional Agility, the ultimate goal of emotional agility is to keep a sense of challenge and growth alive and well throughout your life. That's our challenge in our era of exponential change, fostering feelings of thrill and enthusiasm. Last week I got a fortune cookie. Best fortune cookie of my life. One of those little proverbs that I'll carry with me forever. Better to light one small candle than to curse the darkness. It reminds me of something else I learned recently, that the Chinese ideogram for crisis combines the images of danger and opportunity. Opportunity is ringing. Don't miss it. It never rings? Really? Maybe we should answer it. It could be. Wow. It's quite all right. I had the perfect segue for that. So that's where we're at today. We can be fearful of the changes that are upon us, or learn to take advantage of them by getting ahead of the curve and riding the crest of the wave. Amongst the most widespread changes occurring today, leading to some of the regressive trends that I've already mentioned, regards the emerging global community and the demise of the nation state. Today, everyone in the world shares one environment, one economy, one World Wide Web, one global communications system, one international court, and many of the same grand challenges like global warming and international refugee crises and massive income inequality. Because guess what? We share one global capitalist economy. Even the communists are in our capitalist economy. Whether it's proven by kids trapped in a cave in Thailand that captures the concerns of people all over the world, or China's headlining displeasure over a tweet sent by an American basketball team's general manager, the nation state is going the way of the dodo. Since I've spoken of this in detail many times, I'll summarize what I mean here by saying, as historian Yuval Harari explains, that 12,000 years ago, there were many thousands of different communities on Earth, few of which even knew about each other. 2,000 years ago, the number of these dwarf worlds, as he calls them, had shrunk to just hundreds, or maybe a couple of thousand at the most. By the way, you start to see the exponential nature of change, right? 12,000 years ago, thousands of communities on Earth. 2,000 years ago, just maybe a few hundred to a couple thousand. 500 years ago, now we're right up against where we're about at today, 90% of humans lived in a single mega world, Harari says, which included not thousands, not hundreds, but only 4 distinct societies: the Mesoamerican, the Andean, the Australian, and the Oceanic worlds. And today, he says, almost all humans share the same, singular, geopolitical system, the same economic system, the same legal system, the same scientific system. From such a vantage point, it becomes crystal clear that history is moving relentlessly towards unity. Or as the paleontologist, philosopher, and Jesuit priest Pierre Teilhard de Chardin recognized in the 1940s, life moves toward unification. We can progress only by uniting. This, as we have seen, is the law of life. As an evolutionist who considered such unity the penultimate of life itself, de Chardin also said, "This summit, towards which all our striving must be directed, can only be attained by our drawing together, all of us, more and more closely in every sense, individually, socially, nationally, and racially." He describes the conflict, the choice between fearing change and embracing it, between danger and opportunity, as the choice, in his words, to unite or perish. Through its process of convergence, evolution is bringing us together. In the same way it brought hydrogen particles together to form the first stars, and their stardust to form the first elements, and those elements together to form the first cells, and those cells to form all manner of complex organisms, and those complex organisms to form communities, and those communities to form today's emerging world community. There's no turning back. There's no backing out. We can't step into the same river twice. Change is the only certainty. The big shift today means adapting our ideas and our behaviors to this new global reality. It means we must either unite or perish. This is why MAGA won't work, because it can't work any more than England can truly ever Brexit, or foolhardy liberals can drive wedges between the human family with identitarian delusions that are fundamentally contrary to our human nature. Still, these attempts to hold back the tide, to prevent acknowledging a new reality that is already upon us, prove how frightening the end of nations is. This isn't to say we won't continue referring to today's countries by their names for some time yet, only that the sovereignty of all nations is diminishing, as they are necessarily held more accountable by the whole, just as the individual states comprising the United States have increasingly had to do over the past 200 years. In 1887, for example, railroad technology resulted in the Interstate Commerce Act, regulating the emerging industry for the good of the entire nation. In fact, somebody just reminded me this morning, since we just had to change the clocks back, the time zones were created by this act for the benefit of railroad commerce. It was also during the 1800s, various court decisions, including the Supreme Court, upheld the rights of U.S. citizens to move freely, that is, between states, a decision that it had to solidify not until 1941, due to the Dust Bowl refugee crisis, during which the Supreme Court ruled individual states have no right to restrict interstate migration. Not always been the case in this country, that people were free to go where they wanted and live in which state they wanted to live in. Today, new information and transportation technologies and new refugee and migrant worker crises are forcing all of us to address these same issues on a global scale. What are our rights as human beings to move about our globe without interference? Trump's policies representing an attempt to recoil and reclaim our country's national independence by starting a trade war, preventing immigrants from crossing our southern border, or stopping people from entering the U.S. based upon their religion or ethnicity, hasn't been working so well. This is largely because it can't. Because our global relationships are too complicated and interdependent for us to disrupt without having global ramifications. This isn't to suggest our national identities haven't served us well in the past. It was only after World War I when component nationalities decided they could no longer live together in a common political structure. As Francis Fukuyama points out in his book, Identity, that national identity got a bad name, precisely because it came to be associated with an exclusively ethnically based sense of belonging known as ethno-nationalism. In the U.S., ethno-nationalism manifested as white nationalism and white supremacy. In the beliefs, that is, that being an American means being white, and in institutions and laws favoring those who are. The problem, however, was not with the idea of national identity itself, Fukuyama says. The problem was the narrow, ethnically based, intolerant, and deeply illiberal form that national identity took. The recent book, Empty Planet, about the sudden and unexpected global population decline, points out it's necessary for countries to adopt liberal immigration policies if they want to remain vibrant. Holding up their own country as an example, its Canadian authors, Daryl Bricker and John Ibiston, explain for decades now, Canada has brought in more people on a per capita basis than any other major developed nation, with little of the ethnic tensions, ghettos, and fierce debate that other countries face. They explain this as partly because it embraces multiculturalism, the shared right to celebrate your native culture within the Canadian mosaic. You get to be who you want in Canada, which has produced a peaceful, prosperous, polyglot society among the most fortunate on earth. So where ethno-nationalism hasn't occurred, nationalism has worked well in bonding diverse societies and people together. In places where such identity hasn't been fostered, as in the former USSR, or in Iraq, or Syria, and so on, civil wars tend to break out among those disparate groups with tribal identities, not a collective national identity, but tribal identities during major regime changes. Unfortunately, in the U.S., the declining era of the nation-state has left us more divided than united. This began after the end of the Cold War, when conservatives needed a new enemy to maintain political power, turning their hostilities inward toward their neighbors, toward other Americans they've since been demonizing and dehumanizing as liberals. Liberals, having lost their political strength as a result, began retreating into academia in the 1980s, along with a few other liberal institutions. Apparently, Unitarian Universalism is one of them, and have been promoting identity politics and identity ethics ever since. This neo-tribalistic mentality has been furthered and increasingly dividing wedges between Americans by convincing too many that the arbitrary differences between us are so great that we can't possibly relate to each other. The neoliberal ethic, however, in my opinion, may become as divisive as the ethno-nationalism has been. But again, these regressive responses whether from conservatives or progressives, will ultimately fail because they are flawed attempts to turn back the tide that's already sweeping over us. Even if we wanted to harness the stabilizing benefits of national identity, like security, stable governments, economic strength, welfare programs, and democracy, we can't. For the time of nations is already being displaced by an emerging global identity. My hope and suggestion, rather, is that those of us in positions to influence others, wherever they are from, by promoting human identity and humanistic ethics, should do so. This means wherever we're from, whatever our culture, whatever our skin tone, our sexuality, our gender, our class, and so forth, that we see ourselves as part of one species, one human family that transcends all of our differences. Celebrates, but transcends all of our differences. It also means that our ethnicity, our ethic must be about taking responsibility for others' well-being and unfolding. It's no longer about making America great again, or any other nation for that matter. It's about making Americans great. All of us, not again, but for the first time, by making sure our government and our economy works well for all of us, regardless of our individual identities. Moreover, in a global community, it can't only be about making life great for Americans, or we've failed, or our community has failed, but for everyone, for all of our neighbors around the world, our neighbors around the world. Leading this unifying humanitarian change would truly make Americans great. Today's technologies already allow us to connect with people all over the world instantly. Within the next 2 to 5 years, augmented reality will also enable us to be in the presence of people from anywhere without going anywhere. Within the next 2 to 5 years, that technology already exists. It's been perfected. Glasses no heavier than this. And now it's just a matter of scalability and getting them on the market. It's going to radically change. It's going to be part of this exponential wave we're on. It's going to allow us to be in the presence of people anywhere, everywhere, without going any place. We're no longer locked within our borders. We're no longer confined to our nationalistic identities. And we can now see, if we open our eyes, that we are no longer merely Americans or Russians or Chinese or Mexicans or Iranians or North Koreans or any other nationalism. We are earthlings. We are part of one emerging global family, the human family. I pray that we can acknowledge it, and that we can embrace it, and that we can start acting like it. Thank you.
Our final hymn of the morning is a great one, I think. I love this hymn. Our World is One World, number 134. Please rise in body or spirit.
What touches one affects us all.
Our closing words this morning are from the poet Nicky Giovanni. Know the truth when you hear it. Know beauty when you see it. Understand love when you feel it. And as you dance, always dance on that floor polished by the best of you. Amen. Blessed be. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.